Welcome, everybody. Welcome to ValueMetrics.tv, where we talk with amazing leaders who are pioneering the HR space and transforming the world of recruitment, transforming the world where people thrive. And today we have a wonderful guest with us, Debraj Sinha. Before we
Hi.
proceed with some very interesting questions, I would like Debraj to quickly introduce himself.
All right. Thank you so much, Pooja. Appreciate it. So I've been around in the corporate space in a little over 2 decades, spending, I think, a lot of time on the advisory and consulting side with two firms, as well as in the corporate side, predominantly in the HR domain. Fundamentally, if I look back now, I think the one thing that I'm good at is solving business problems through the talent lens. And I believe that is something that I've really specialized in.
Thank you so much, Devraj. Clearly, you have a very extensive experience and you have seen pretty much the whole evolution of HR space as well. And the evolution now has, in fact, it has become a little bit more rapid. It's increasing every day. So, based upon your experience so far, what is the biggest shift that you witnessed in how organizations are approaching talent, specifically in the last 5 years?
See, I'll answer this through two frames. The first one is if I look at specifically the Indian context, in some ways, for most organizations, nothing has changed. Uh, we still see organizations operating the same way. They have a point of view which stems from what they believe is their understanding of the individual across, because they have worked with that individual for a very long period of time. And then that is where biases come in, and that's how decisions get taken. So I would say, for a large part, the structured approach to looking at talent and managing it has to come in. The other side, I think the shift has begun, right? And the shift has definitely begun. Organizations are now rethinking the way that they need to manage talent. And they are looking at a lot of processes and science to come in. In fact, as per some of the reports that I read, it is now a boardroom discussion. It has moved beyond HR into the core business, because that's what defining success. And in the Indian context, especially, talent continues to be a challenge. Good talent, right talent continues to be a challenge. There is a strong demand, but the supply side still needs a lot of improvement. So I think people are looking at frameworks and processes. People are leveraging technology, or at least thinking about doing it in their own small ways. There is a lot that's available, whether it's large scale talent platforms or whether it's AI tools per se. But I would still say it's in some way the AI side still remains in its infancy. I think a lot of organizations are still using the more traditional HRIS mechanisms to kind of appreciate and work with talent. Yeah.
There are a lot of organizations who are pioneering the space where they're completely becoming AI first, while there's still organizations who feel that maybe it's not the right way to go. So there's definitely a lot of back and forth in these two spaces.
To be fair, I think some of these things are still a little too early for me to comment with surety whether it's a misconception or the right approach. But I think there are two frames, since you asked for it again, that I see. One is that oh, there's AI and it'll solve all my problems. So I'm going to become damn productive. I'm going to have access to information at the tips of my fingers, and I'm going to improve my response rate and devise better solutions and strategies, right? And the second frame that I see, and that's the global piece, right, is that AI is going to eat up jobs, right? So I don't know right or wrong, but if I was to go around, I think these two are aspects that I definitely see a lot of leaders talking about, grappling with, thinking through, trying to solve for. No perfect solutions yet, but at least the conversations have begun.
There's a lot of fear that you see that AI is going to take all the jobs, these skills are obsolete now, this is not how the world is going to operate in future. But when you work with people, I think things are still very much human. So, how do you think organizations can balance the efficiency of AI but still maintain that essential human element while recruiting?
The challenge is not too many individuals are investing in themselves and playing around in these platforms and tools to become better themselves, right? Now, this is something I'm doing a lot and I'm really thinking about in the new organization. And we can talk about it if it's required. But I think that, so the individual needs to focus. It's finally me, my family, and myself. It begins with me. I need to think about it. That's part one. Second, From the organizational lens, I think they need to backward 5 years or 10 years hence, right? I think it's about really rethinking the skilling architecture. It is rethinking the way organizations are designed. It is rethinking about the way jobs are constructed. And then helping these people who have been with them, who have been loyal with them for extended period of time to say, hey, you know what? Come to me. I'm going to help you because I know what is going to happen at least in my organization 5 years hence. I don't think organizations are following this structured path. This goes back to the earlier point when you asked me about talent. And that is what I meant when I said, are organizations really thinking about tomorrow and then working on the talent for today? No. I need to promote a guy today. I will start his training from the day he gets promoted or she gets promoted. Why don't I prepare these people from before? And that is genuine talent management, right? And the third piece, obviously, as we see some excitement in the Western worlds about the government and legislations, I don't know what's going to happen in India, but I do believe it's a matter of time before that also starts happening. Because if the impact on employed people is going to be such large scale, there will be some implications and we'll see some action there. So I think we need to look at it from all the three lenses: the political side, the company side, and the individual side, for us to solve for this together.
Interesting. So traditionally, what you mentioned, the traditional approach of hiring a candidate, it's usually very slow if you're hiring a candidate traditionally. So from your perspective, if you have to hire people specifically at a C-level executive level, so what are the biggest pain points that people are experiencing in hiring?
I think one challenge that I've seen is that the hiring manager many times themselves are not very clear about what they're looking for. And the brief is extremely narrow. I want a person with 20 years of experience who has to be an MBA from a top college, has to come from this industry, should have done this job. That's typically how a brief, many times, not everywhere, but many organizations is given, right? I think it is first extremely important to clarify the profile, the success profile that I'd call it, of the candidate who has to be hired, which is beyond these aspects. These are easy, right? These are easy. What is important is to understand what are some traits or behaviors that we need to evaluate that will help this person be successful in your context. And different kind of organizations behave differently. Organizations that are large and promoter led, MNCs, Indian conglomerates, various reasons, they operate differently. You can't have the same talent being successful everywhere unless he or she has the skills for that success, right? So it is looking at those aspects and then kind of, like I said, setting up a process for evaluating that. And I would believe that the more senior you go up, the more time you invest in selecting, right? Because data tells us, and this is research data, that a wrong hiring at the senior levels especially cost you 3 to 4 times the total salary of that individual. Now that's a business loss. So why would I not put in a little bit more time, but ensure that the individual who comes in has a higher likelihood of success? And I go beyond the traditional vectors of output. I look at input vectors. I look at behavioral levers. I look at cultural levers. I look at aspects around team management. Those are extremely important aspects to consider.
You also talked about the fact that, a person successful in organization A might not be successful in organization B for various reasons, culture being one of them.
Yeah.
So, since hiring for culture fit is so tough, what are the biggest challenges in objectively assessing the cultural alignment of a particular candidate?
One level, culture fit is not about a 10 out of a 10 score. It is about a point of view. It's about perspective. And therefore, some ways it's not that as complex as we seem to have made it out to be. If I really think about it, I think the challenge is people believe they can continue to do what they were doing and see success in today's VUCA or Bani world. I don't think that's the case. And therefore, the effort required to shift, the mindset to shift, to look at things differently, especially when it comes to talent, still is not something they are doing. And one of the reasons is, and I think this is where a robust HR partnership can make the difference. But I'll come to that later. Now, coming back, there are ways to assess for culture, right? We do have enough valid tools available, whether you call it psychometric, whether you call it cognitive, that can give us certain perspectives about the ways of thinking and the typical way the person might behave. Again, I'm saying it's not a 10 out of 10, it's an input, but it's a valid input for me to consider. That's part one. Part two, when I'm actually interviewing and meeting a person, ideally in person, is extremely crucial. You need to strike that bond and that relationship, right? Everything can't be done on a phone, right? There is a belief that WhatsApp will solve all our problems the way that I see it, but that's not going to solve our problems. We need to invest time. So this piece is about, am I smart enough? Do I have a toolkit? Do I know what kind of questions I can ask to understand and appreciate this cultural and behavioral side? And there is a valid proven methodology called behavioral event interviewing that allows us to get into that in a smart way. So the entire interviewing process hinges around 5 or 6 core capabilities that are relevant in the context of the client organization or the hiring organization.
Because sometimes you set in certain ways, there's a culture, and then having a new person, team member get involved immediately can shake things a little bit. See, the point is eventually to build high performance teams where chemistry plays a very, very important role, which often feels like guesswork.
See, if I can be a little critical, and again, this is my personal opinion. When it comes to hiring, I don't think people are thinking about the team as much as about that individual who's being hired. The team always comes later, and then one realizes, oops, this guy is not working out with the team or otherwise, So I think the first thing is to, as I said, is to first consider the internal ecosystem, right? Am I an organization where I prefer to give teams a lot of time to success? I'm okay not being very sharp in holding them accountable to outcomes. I give them a long rope. Now, in this ecosystem, you get in a person who's a rock star in the current company where he or she is being hired from. But that ecosystem is about output, output, output. And this guy has worked like that and seen tremendous success. Now you suddenly plot this guy in. You will have conflict. And you'll have conflict because you didn't think about, what do I need for this team to be successful tomorrow? Right? So to me, the first point to the question that you ask is, hiring managers need to have a lot of clarity around the teams they are hiring for. What makes it the team, right? What is the mix? What kind of diversity? What kind of demographics, right? And what skills does the current team have, and what do I need to complement it? Versus having the same kind of a profile everywhere. Once I know that, then when I go out and look at a candidate, I obviously try and bring in that lens. That's part one. Part two, the person has come in and the very next day is told, okay, output, output, business, business, business. I think that there has to be a process of easing these people into the teams and the organization. So the onboarding process is very critical. And onboarding, in my sense, is not only about training for product process. It is about values. It is about behavior. It is about culture. It is about the manager of that individual's openness to coaching and guiding, right? So that this person comes up the curve, right? Third piece to me, and I'm kind of taking it through the life cycle, so to speak, is about, okay, I have done the onboarding. Now let me set expectations very clearly. The individual needs to be clear on what he or she has to deliver to.
We often say that we want to build great teams, and that's where, we are taking so much of pain in hiring the right candidate, onboarding them, making them feel welcome. But in your perspective, what is a great team? What does great mean to you?
Uh, I seem to be responding to everything from two frames, so I'll do that here also.
No worries. Please do that.
Fundamentally, corporates are meant to do business, generate revenue, and make profits. Nothing gets away from that business model. All said and done, one very important lens is, if I have a set of people which I constitute a team, whichever way, they are expected to do ABC, and they need to do that. If they do it faster, they do more of it, they are more efficient, that tells me I have a good team. So that's the one side of it, right? Which is, if the team has targets, are they delivering, and consistently? To me, consistent delivery, right? and stretch may define that success. Right? The other element of a team, of a great team, is how are these people working together? Are they proactively rising up to support each other? Are they taking on somebody else's slack? It is only then that that output will be great. You can't drive. Otherwise, you can use the whip. It'll work for once, it'll work second, and next time when the manager turns around, the team has gone off somewhere else. They're not even there. So where do you get? So I think it's looking at and balancing out both the input and the output. That's the way that I would call it. That for me defines a great team, right? It is consistent success, regular success. It is keeping to promises made, which to me is integrity in many ways. At the same time, a team that is working very well together, stretching themselves, breaking silos, collaborating for success, and thinking about creating tomorrow, not only focusing on the here and now.
Other than hard skills, these are important if you truly want to thrive and support people in any kind of ecosystem, personal or professional. So, how do we account for these softer aspects when we're hiring a candidate? How do we make sure that a person exhibits these human behaviors?
See, first, my personal view is these are not soft skills; these are real hard skills.
Hmm.
This term "soft" I think is a misnomer. We should not use it at all,
Okay.
right? In today's world, these are the hardest skills to acquire and the hardest ones to manifest. They are damn hard skills, let me tell you that, right? And again, I go back in that context. I think first thing we need to do is we need time for ourselves as leaders to think. If leaders end up doing the job of their direct reports, if the leaders are running on a treadmill and there is no time to think, these aspects will never come to the fore. So it starts from leaders sitting and saying, hey, you know what, let's pause and let's think. I've hired this set of people. I want them to be successful. Let's first sit and think. And I need support from ABC. That'll come later. But I need to think about what I really want today and tomorrow. Once you think, right, it gives you an option to revisit your current frame of business or the way that you look at talent, right? And then you break it down, like I said. There are these aspects that are outcome oriented, and there are these aspects that one will need to invest to make the team great, right? There are ways to evaluate and assess for all of these. Again, I'm saying not a 10 out of 10, but you get a very good perspective, right? We have to define them first in the context of the organization. That's something I'm damn passionate about. Emotional intelligence, we can't copy paste Daniel Goleman's definition everywhere. Maybe it means something a little different or more of in another organization, right? So these have to be defined, and then they have to be converted into actions or behaviors that these individuals need to manifest. That will tell somebody, the manager, the leader.
Looking, let's say, 5 to 10 years ahead, what are the biggest shifts that you foresee in how these organizations are going to attract, assess, and secure top talent?
It's a very difficult one. I said it myself. I haven't thought about it.
Okay.
But that said, I think there is no doubt that technology, whether it's AI, whether it's digital, will start playing a bigger and bigger role. I think that's like a given. We already see that happening. I think, like I said, that buffered with humanness is something that will make the proposition. So I see that one. Number two, I do believe that rather than keeping the focus only on hiring talent externally, we will continue to see this piece of identifying and developing leaders from within get more traction, get more process, get more frameworks, get more science, get more effort, right? Because the one advantage that these people within organizations may have, and I say may deliberately, is a better attunement around that cultural aspect and a better fit, right? So that's number two. Number three, I think this entire piece of talent, at least I believe, will start seeing certain levels of quantification. That's been a challenge for the profession, human resources, right? It's a profession because it deals with people. It's damn challenging. At the same time, very difficult to quantify each element or initiative, right? But I think one will have to think through. And I'm not saying quantification is numbers, but a frame of measuring the success or lack of it of initiatives. I think it will be required, right? The fourth element that I'm damn passionate about, and I think done well creates a lot of impact, is around the entire piece of skilling. This is another place, thanks to technology, thanks to a lot of research, thanks to frameworks, will continue to evolve, right? So the onus will move to the individual to invest in themselves and the manager to provide an ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Debraj. It has been such an interesting session. It's very nice to see very different opinions on what soft skills that we consider are and how, and it's a very beautiful insight on how we are not supposed to consider them as soft skill anymore. They're the hardest to acquire, they're hardest to demonstrate. So how do we take on to that as well? So thank you so much. I had a lot of fun talking to you today.
What I've shared are aspects I genuinely feel, and this conversation has all been from the heart and not from the head. My Therefore, my closing line is, the more we can start thinking from the heart and balancing with the head, we can have magic happening. And it's not about employee employer. Even at global levels, what we see happening, if I can be bold enough, it is all about the heart stepping in and balancing the head. If everywhere we go with the head, I think we will continue to have challenges, right? So thank you for the opportunity. I loved having the conversation. Thank you so much.